Making tapered cuts on the table saw like this is easy with a simple jig called an L fence. Let me show you. This is an L fence. And so is this. But the way I made those cuts that I showed you earlier was with a different style L fence. So over here you'll see my large L fence fastened to my table saw fence. It adjusts up and down for different width cuts. This is mainly going to be used, well, not mainly, it's going to be used for cutting angles on flat stock. So now if you don't own a track saw, this is a very good option. Very inexpensive, you know, a couple of bolts and some T-nuts. The rest is just plywood. And I did face it off with some hardwood edging here, but a little time and some scrap plywood. Mine measures 10 inches wide here, and it's 52 inches long. You can make it whatever you want. I don't think you'd want maybe get too much deeper. It's got good strength for being this wide. It's got a little flex to it, but not too bad. So the way you set it up is you're gonna want this to be the edge of your L fence to be just over the outside tooth of your blade, and you can check that with a piece of plywood. You know, run a piece of scrap along here. Let me grab something quick. And just make sure the blade doesn't move. And then you can also put this here and you know, eyeball it down this way and see if you can see just a little bit of daylight there. You don't want it cutting into your other fence that's going to be your guide to make this rip cut, and that's this piece right here. So this is the other part of the jig. The thing that I've added to this that I have never seen is this little adjustable stop block on the end here. That's got some sandpaper. Let me take it off here quick for you. So it's got sandpaper on that side so that when I clamp it, it doesn't move. And it's nothing more than a 5/16 toilet bolt. You know, countersunk into the base of it. It's about maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. That can be thinner if you wanted, or thicker. I'm generally using this for 3/4 inch stock, so it needs to be thicker, or thinner, I'm sorry, than the thickest piece that you're going to run through here. So I put that back in here, and then I've got self-adhesive, 150 grit sandpaper here, PSA. I've got a hole up here that if I needed to shorten it up, I can bring it up here if I wanted to, and use it in a single hole and pivot it, you know, and lock it. But here, this is nice because I'll show you why this slot makes it better to use it this way. And then I made it reversible so I could use the other end if I have to. So flipping it back over, put my knob on here. I'm actually going to put another washer on here as well. And pull it back all the way. Okay, so this is basically my push block that I use to push the stock through. Now on the piece that I want to cut here, I've marked a line, and then what you do is take your push guide. You can't really see this, but I'm going to lay it right on the line. I'll get you a better view of this in just a second. Oops, I'm going to pull this up. I want to be able to see the side that I'm pushing against. I want to be able to see it through this window. And I'll show you those two views here in a second. So putting it on the line, or just so I can see the line. Just like that. Let me get you some quick shots of this. Now you can see the edge that I'm talking about right there. Then I loosen this up and I can bring that stop block up until it rests against that, and then tighten it. And now I know that I've got a positive stop at the correct angle when I push my work through. Drop the blade down, and I'm going to set my depth of cut. So I'm taking another piece of plywood, and I want the fence to be a little bit higher than what I'm going to cut. So I'll take my L fence here and raise it up. Drop this underneath. And that's the height that I want right there. And incidentally, the capacity of this is about 1.5 inches. And I don't know what I've got it set at right now. I'm guessing it's about 1.25 inches, yeah, 1.25 inches. Now I can take my workpiece that I want to cut, raise the blade till it's just below my fence. Like that. And now I can make this cut. Now if you're worried, sorry, if you're worried about, you know, cutting on the line, leaving the line, things like that, you can adjust this over. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the line so we can see how accurate it cuts. I'm going to slide it over just a little bit more to cover the blade, which will leave my line. So I'm going to take my micro adjuster and just slide this over a little bit here. Something like that. And that will leave the line, and I can see how accurate I am. And if I need to make any adjustments, I can do that. Or if I want to shave this a little bit off, I can micro adjust my fence over the other way and do that as well. But this looks pretty good to me. So let's see how she cuts. Alright, there's my line. You can see I'm a little thin right here, and I'm a little thicker out here. So that tells me that I need to take a little bit more off of this end, obviously. So I'm going to line this up again. I'm going to go from 0. I'm going to loosen up this again as well. I'm going to go from 0 to a little bit more on this end. There's 0. Just like that. Bring my stop up. Now, you can see that it leaves the waste. It's got plenty of room in there so it doesn't get bound up or kicked back. So there's my waste piece. I'm going to dial my fence over just a little bit this way now. And make this cut. That is perfectly parallel to that line now. That looks really good. So that's how you can make angled cuts on your table saw to a line or just shy of the line, or whatever you want to do. If you want to take the line by adjusting your L fence one way or the other, and then put your guide board on there and run it through. Now I could be doing, I could have done this too. I could have put this on here, lined it up, and instead of just using my hands, I could have used the push block, which would be probably a better situation to do it that way. Put pressure down in the middle and then push it through. But I really like this idea for making those tapered cuts like I showed you earlier. Safe, the blade is covered. You can move this in and out depending on what you really want. You can dial it right in so it's right to the edge. What you don't want to do though is cut into the edge of your push board. It's a fine line right there. You don't want to have to take that edge away, because that's what you're using for an alignment, is this edge. And incidentally, I will say that about this push board. These are sharp edges. I did not sand these or round them over in any way, because that's what I'm using to register to my line. So you want to have a good crisp edge there to do that, and then you're good to go. So the L fence, that's pretty easy to make. Piece of plywood, couple pieces. Run a groove in there. Glue the two pieces together. Make sure they're at 90 degrees. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be reasonable. You don't want this thing sagging down. You want this edge perpendicular to your saw tabletop, and then away you go. All this capacity in here is allowing for your waste piece to drop and not be bound between the fence and the blade. So that's what that area is for. And you can shorten this up if you want, and you can take this piece and rough cut to the line with a bandsaw or a jigsaw, whatever, and then if you get it down to 1 inch, this could be shortened up to 4 inches if you wanted. So I just made mine this way because this was a piece of plywood I had laying around, and it turned out really nice. You can see that there's a little flex there, but you don't use this as a table. You're using it as a reference edge. So that's it. Making tapered cuts on the table saw if you don't own a track saw or any other means of making that cut. I think this is a great alternative to buying a track saw. Granted, you can't. Maybe you might be limited to, you know, I don't know, 4 feet, but I can't imagine you need to make a tapered cut any longer than that. So there you have it. Thanks for watching.